Okay, hey guys, so it's Tuesday and I was supposed to have this video up for you yesterday. Well, the original video never uploaded to YouTube. We've had a lot of problems with our internet. And then yesterday, as soon as I finished sending some emails and got settled in to start making some stuff for doing some grading and making sure that videos were uploading and all of that, we lost electricity at our house, and it came on very briefly for about like 10 minutes um, at around 7 p.m. and then it like cut out again and it didn't come back until around midnight, and by that time I was not going to be doing any work at all. So I am here now this afternoon after um, struggling to get things to like load, and um, just my internet's really slow again. And I've been kind of waiting for all of the people. We had two snowblowers outside from neighbors and shoveling and things like right outside my office window. So I've been kind of waiting for that to quiet down so I could start recording this video. All right, so I'm just gonna briefly um, talk about the agenda for the week, and then I'm going to talk about the research project itself and a couple things that go with that. So let's dive in. I'm gonna take a sip of coffee first. Okay, this week you should have already started, or you should be starting, because today you have a source chart that you have to submit. So the first thing that we're doing this week is reading a little bit and understanding rhetoric, just a few pages about keeping the story straight. That's kind of an introduction to your research, the research that we'll be doing uh, throughout this project and into the next project. I do know that we have skipped a couple of issues. We will be coming back to issue 4, and I don't believe we're reading issue 5 this semester, but we might be reading parts of it. I can't remember off the top of my head what the scheduling is going forward with our reading. So, keeping the story straight, it's just about kind of getting into research and knowing what comes when and keeping track of information and that kind of stuff. Um, and then your next section is tracking down sources, which goes directly into what we are working on. What you hopefully were able to work on some yesterday, although who knows, maybe some of you had power outages too, and working on today. But I'm asking you to have 5 sources by the end of the day today: one academic source, one TED Talk or comparable video, and then 3 popular media sources. Those can be news or magazine articles, a video or a movie or even a TV show, possibly, podcast, a book, uh, a website that is particularly appropriate. Um, it may be a blog if it's a professional kind of blog, but if it's, just some random person's hobby blog, you probably don't want to use that. And you'll learn more about that tomorrow when you get into evaluating your sources. So for yesterday and today's work, you were supposed to do module 3 tutorial video, which is a very simple video that just introduces how to use GRCC's OneSearch, which is their like one ring to rule them all search engine on the GRCC library site. And then I've given you some other sites that are tools that you could use. The TED website, you can use the Discover tab to explore by topics to find a video or two that would fit, what you're hoping to write about. Google, or if you use a different search engine, you could use one of those too. I'm just so used to Google. That's just become the synonym for search. Google it. And then Google Scholar, I do not know if other search engines have something comparable to Google Scholar, so I only have Google Scholar linked here. Scholar will Only go for the academic and professional type sources. One thing to note about those, though, is that most of them are behind a paywall. Um, so if you do find a source that looks like it's really good through Google Scholar, you might want to take that information for that source and then plug it into the GRCC one search to see if you can access it through the GRCC library, because the library pays for subscriptions to all of these publications and databases and whatnot. So while the results come up in Google Scholar, you often can't access them without a subscription. And you don't want to have to get a subscription for an English 101 paper. I don't want you to do that. So go ahead and take that information, plug it into the GRCC One search and see what you can come up with there. If you run into trouble, you can contact me. Hopefully our power will stay on now. So I can try to help you out with that. So yeah, you have to have one academic source, one TED Talk or comparable video, like a lecture type video, and then 3 popular media news sources or popular media sources, sorry. And you could have a second TED Talk there if you wanted to, or a documentary or some other kind of movie. Sometimes TV shows, if you were going for, say, a lot of the racial inequality issues, you may choose a TV show that really highlights some of those. And some of those TV shows include the ish shows, Blackish, Mixedish, and Grownish. They often deal with those issues in their shows, and they do it in an intelligent way, with a lot of factual information, not just entertainment. So you could rely on one of those shows if that fit your topic. Um, all right. Excuse me. You are putting everything together in a source chart. I have created a chart for you, that if you go into your own Google Drive, you can copy it into your drive and edit it from there. You can just use this as kind of a model of what I want you to do and create your own document in Word. You can also download it, as a Word document. If you want to be able to edit it, you should not download it as a PDF document, because you won't be able to edit it. But if you want to open it or do it in Word, you can download it as a Word document, and it's just a very simple chart. So you shouldn't run into any formatting issues. But one thing to note is that I do have it set up as a landscape page setup as opposed to portrait. So if you copy it over and it looks funky, go into the settings and make sure that you have landscape checked so that it fits properly, whatever. And you can arrange the sizes of the columns to suit your needs as well. Yeah, so it's a very simple chart just to help you make sure you've got the variety of sources that you need to have. I'm asking for the title of the source, the author, and the URL or location. And one person who's already submitted them very nicely put under the popular media, put like New York Times or whatever the name of the publication was there, which was really nice because sometimes it's not clear from the URL. So that's just a pro tip from one of your classmates. Good job, classmate. Okay, so then moving on, you're going to be doing module 4, which is evaluating sources. And that is one of those interactive tutorials like the first 2 modules were, also from Austin Community College. So you'll go through that. And one of the things they teach you in there is this CRAP acronym, and what all of that means. And then I have a document that you will complete for your sources. I'm giving you until Sunday to complete this, not so that you can wait and then realize you don't have enough time to give good answers, but so that you have time to give good answers, which means you could take one source on Wednesday, one on Thursday, one on Friday, one on Saturday, one on Sunday, and you'll have them all done on time. If you want to do them all at once, you can. Just make sure you understand that I am expecting answers that show that you have really paid attention to the questions, thought about the information, found what you need to find, or made it the best effort you can to find the answers. I am going to point out a couple of things here. One is I have labeled them to help you keep your sources straight, because each one takes more than one page with all the questions. And so then sometimes it can get a little tricky to keep up with where you are on the document. So I've labeled each one with the kind of source that it is, and you can cite the source there. For right now, since we haven't talked about MLA citations, if that is something you're not familiar with, just give the basic information that you have on the source chart: the author, the title, the author, and the URL. Or the location, if it's like in a book or something, the name of the book and page numbers. But don't worry about a specific format. However, if you are familiar with MLA formatting or the tools to give MLA citations, you can go ahead and put those in there. It'll save you some work later. Let's see. The other things that I wanted to make sure I point out in here is that I'm asking you to use like a different color for your answers if you can, just because it'll make it a lot easier to read through it and see, what you have in there and what is the regular question. Make sure it's a legible, readable color. So like yellow is a bad idea. Red is also a bad idea because it's just harder on the eyes to read. So, go for something like blue or green or purple, something like that, that just kind of contrasts with the black and is easy to read. The other thing I want to point out is in this question, is the information current or is it out of date for your topic? It's not a yes or no question. I've had so many students over the last couple of semesters just give a simple yes or a no. It's not a yes or no question. It's an either or. Is it current or not? That's, so yes, it's current, or no, it isn't. And again, after you do your module 4 tutorial, that's going to make more sense to you, or it should. But everything else is pretty straightforward. I think one thing to note in here, what does the URL reveal about the author or the source? So examples of some of the URLs: the .com is commercial, .edu is educational, .gov is government, .org is a nonprofit organization, .net was a network. Typically, when you're doing academic research, you want to use .edu, .gov, and .org for your more reliable sources, because .com is set up to sell you something or to entertain you or something like that. It's not necessarily set up in a way that is informative and factual and fact checked. But that's not a hard and fast rule. So, that's one of the things that you want to keep in mind. Yeah. And I think that everything else in here is pretty straightforward. So again, to use this document, if you want to use Google Docs, you just go open with Google Docs and you can have it open. You'll need to copy it then into your Google Drive, and then it will be an editable document. If you want to use it as a Word document, you can come here to download and it'll download it to your computer as a Word document. You can open it in Word and have an editable document, but you can't do anything with it here in the system viewer. Okay. I have just added, because I wasn't able to yesterday, 2 media bias charts that you may find helpful, especially when you're looking at the potential bias of any of your sources. The All Sides media bias chart is a static chart, a document that when it opens sometime, you can see that it takes sorry, excuse me, that it takes various popular media sources and it tells you, which ones are more centrist leaning, which ones lean more to the left or more radically left, which ones lean right or more radically right, so more liberal, more conservative in political views. Um, this is based on only the online content, and it doesn't really distinguish. Um, Wait, actually, this one does. Sorry, this one does distinguish. I just have to get to the right thing where we can see it better. But you can see here, let's look at CNN as an example because it's really easy to see here. You have CNN news only. The news articles, just the news articles, tend to lean toward the more liberal perspective. Um, when you get to the opinion pieces, you're like all the way in the liberal perspective there. So nearly all of the opinion pieces are far not like radical liberal, some of them are, but they're definitely not close to centrist at all. And then you can see the same thing happens with Fox News, where the online news, it tends to lean to the right, tends to be more conservative viewpoint. But then when you get to the opinion, it is almost all um, very conservative opinion. Now, I will say that about Fox, and I'm not quite certain with CNN, but I do know that Fox often has like, uh, I guess, kind of opposing viewpoints. So they'll print um, a conservative view on a topic next to a more liberal view on a topic, which gives a more, if you read both of them, you'll get a broader view, a more holistic picture. NPR will often do that as well. And you can see that NPR news tends to be very center, which means that it is very fact oriented and it doesn't give the news only, doesn't give a lot of commentary. But once you start getting into the opinion, which might be more of the analysis, more of the commentary, you're going to get a slightly liberal leaning. So you can use this chart for any of your popular media sources that that you might be using. The Wall Street Journal, you can look, they've got the Guardian, NBC, New York Times. So lots of the popular sources are here. You can see where they fall on the spectrum. And it's a pretty accurate spectrum here. And then the other one that I have for you is an interactive media bias chart. And we'll let that load for a second. And you just scroll down here. Don't pay attention to the money part of it because this part is free. And so you can kind of zoom in and see different sources and where they fall on this chart. It is a more complex chart to try to figure out what everything is. It's got these little lines, dotted lines that are colored and everything. But if you can get it to zoom out, and you can move it over here, you can see that anything in the green zone is the most reliable for news. And you can see if you were to spread this out, you would see a whole bunch of news in there. You can see the Weather Channel is there. Anything in the AP is there. You've got all kinds of stuff that's in there. I think BBC is hiding CNN. I have no idea because it's all mashed together right now, but we'll pull that out later. And then the yellow zone is reliable for news, but it is also high in analysis or opinion content. So it has more commentary with the news. So it's still good, but it's a little, um, you're going to find a little more skewing either way in this one. The yellow or the orange ones are some reliability issues and heading into some extremism in some cases. And then if it falls into the red zone, then it's got some serious reliability or extremism issues. And you can see that they've got samples of those on both sides of the aisle here. So And then you can see here that they've got, most extreme left, hyperpartisan left, skews left, neutral or balanced bias, skews right, hyperpartisan, and then it's going to be most extreme right as you go that way. So if you pull this out as far as it goes, you can see what falls in where, and you can see that sometimes, things overlap. So in here, we've got most reliable for news, but also has some uh, analysis and opinion that you would want to be aware of. And then here we've got things that are up higher are original fact reporting, they're more reliable. And the things that fall lower on the chart contain more inaccurate or fabricated information. Or misleading information, selective or incomplete story, unfair persuasion, or propaganda. And note that this is unfair persuasion. There's a lot of very fair persuasion on all parts of the spectrum, right? You may find that some of this is slightly different than what you see in the other chart. That's where you have to use your best judgment and your experiences with the different sources themselves, not hearsay about them, but the sources themselves. And that's, part of being a good researcher is looking at maybe an article in one publication about a topic and another publication about the same topic and seeing where they give you the same information and where they start to pull away from each other and maybe challenge each other in their analyses or their interpretations. You also have to be aware that as you can see here, every source has a bias of some sort, even the ones that are neutral or balanced, as we saw, especially in the other chart, because it's just easier to look at right now. We see that even the ones that are pretty neutral or balanced for their reporting, once you start getting into commentary, opinion, and such, you start moving one direction or the other. Um, so every source is going to have a bias of some kind. It's your responsibility as a researcher, as a consumer of the information, to understand what that bias is and how that bias affects the information that they'll present. If it's a news article only, your sources that you've got here are going to be pretty factual, pretty straightforward. These ones are going to be pretty neutral. These ones are still going to be good, strong reporters of information, but they might just have a little more conservative viewpoint on that information. And the same here, they're going to be good reporters of information, but they're going to have a more liberal viewpoint on that information. And then when you start getting into the opinion and the commentary, again, they tend to separate even more and more obviously. All right. So if you have questions about that, please let me know. I can talk to you about that. Um, let's see. So you're going to continue that again on Thursday. Continue working on your CRAP assignment tests or your CRAP test assignment. And do your other brain dump and sensory inventory. Friday, same thing. I'm not having you do a reading IQ on this issue this week. Just because I really want you to spend as much time as you can on the research itself. We'll catch up with the reading IQ next time. And so let's get out there and explore, as Ms. Frizzle says. And if you guys have never seen Magic School Bus, you're missing out on life. And so I would say go see if you can find an episode or two because you're never too old for Miss Frizzle. All right. So that is our overview of the week, and we're going to look specifically at the research project right now. Most of you have seen this document already. It was linked last week and it is linked this week as well. And I do have the portfolio ready for you. So you could just be putting your work in there, as I'm also asking for several of these things to be posted on Blackboard. That way I can make sure, since this is a research-based project rather than a personal experience-based project, So I can make sure that you are not falling behind, that you are not running into issues with sources or misinterpreting information or just being confused because sometimes that happens. Um, so I just, but once you have something that you submit on Blackboard and you check the portfolio, if it needs to be in the portfolio, go ahead and copy it in there right away so you don't have to worry about it later. And let's see. So the topic, it can be any researchable topic about which you can write intelligently, objectively, and analytically. Researchable means you have to be able to research it. There has to be sources about it out there, and the kinds of sources that I'm asking you to have. So if you are choosing a topic that doesn't have any academic articles in any way that relates to the topic, or doesn't have any news articles or other popular media written about it, it's not a researchable topic. If you're choosing a topic that is something we might call speculative, like what if this hadn't happened, what would the world be like? That's getting into speculation. Or if we do this now, what will that mean 10 years down the road? That's not really something you can research. That's more speculative and isn't really going to accomplish the goal of our work here. So you want to make sure that your topic is researchable, that you can write about it intelligently, that you can be objective in your writing, and that you can be analytical in your writing, which means that you may have your own personal viewpoint challenged, and you have to be able to respect differences of opinion and point of view. And here comes a third snowblower outside. Okay. So what you're going to be doing is creating a chapter or a portion of a chapter for a textbook. Not literally, a textbook, but you've all had experience with textbooks for how many years now? You know what they look like. You know the variety of different kinds of textbooks. You know the different subjects. You know there's even more variety once you get into full-blown college classes. So you're going to use all of that experience you've had with textbooks, and you're going to turn your research, the work you're doing, into a chapter or a section of a chapter for a textbook of your choice aimed at, high school, college students, um, in a subject that interests you. So let's think about an example here. Maybe you were really interested in um, the idea of nature, and nature being everywhere around us, and thinking about this is a place, and going out into CVS parking lots to see what you can learn. Maybe what you end up wanting to do is find out what are the ecosystems in the Grand Rapids area. And when I say Grand Rapids area, I mean the area that surrounds Grand Rapids. I don't mean the city of. I mean, anything in this region, anything in Kent County. So if you don't live in Grand Rapids or right outside Grand Rapids, don't tell me you can't do this, because you can. If you're choosing this topic. If you live in Ada, that is still Grand Rapids area, so you can write about Ada. But you might want to be writing about your local ecosystems. What are the native plants and animals in the area, and has anything been written or produced about how, let's use Ada as an example. Ada has had some massive, I would call it revitalization in a way, in the Ada Village area. Lots of new buildings, lots of renovated buildings, lots of changes along that area. I think there's probably more traffic because there's more to do, and so more people are doing things in Ada. Um, how has that affected the wildlife, the plants and the animals, the native plants and animals in the area? Or has it been written about? maybe that's something you want to write about. And then you would be writing about that in some sort of a science textbook. So you would imagine, a science textbook that you've used or maybe are using now in one of your classes, and you would design your chapter to fit that textbook. Um, you can include, and you should include, any supporting graphs, charts, photos, or other images, drawings that you create that would support the text. You can use headings and subheadings just like a textbook would. Your main text needs to be in black, but you can use other colors for any headings or sidebars or anything like that. Now, most of us, we have Google Docs or Word or Pages, so we don't have a lot of fancy tools to use for creating our textbook. And that's okay. Although I will say that I believe there are templates available for textbooky, newslettery type things in all three of those major word processing platforms. Google Docs and Word and Pages all have templates of some sort, and you are free to use those templates if you would like to. And if you want to run one by me and say, hey, can I use this one? Will it work? I'm more than happy to talk about that with you. The source list is here as well. The requirements, you're writing 3 single-spaced pages because most textbooks are single-spaced or close to single-spaced, like maybe 1.2, 1.3 kind of spacing. So you're going to use single space. You're going to be writing about 1,500 words is what it'll average out to. You want to keep 1-inch margins. You want to have a cover page with your heading. Instead of putting a heading in the top of the in the upper left hand corner of the first page of your actual work, you want to have a cover page that has that information instead. That cover page information, oh, I meant to put that on here. I'll add this in here after I finish this video. And then on the top right corner of every page, and you can use the header function for this, you want to put your last name and page number. You should be using Times New Roman size 12 for the main font. Anything else, headings and whatnot, you can change the size and the color again. You can change the font itself as long as it's readable. You can use a fun font as long as it's a readable font. Your 5 sources, you want to use MLA documentation. So even though this isn't an essay, we're still going to be working with MLA documentation. You will have in-text citations, you will have a works cited page, and we will be going over those in a future week. If you haven't already read the note about topics, please make sure you've done that. Anyone who did submit the topic proposal, I have checked and commented on that. So I don't think anyone fell into any of these kind of areas, but there's just I've just never had a student turn in a good quality paper on these topics. And some of them are really not even timely topics. They're just not, they don't meet the Kairos requirements at this point. And then I did give you a list, Voices from the Rust Belt. Our readings that we've done the last couple of weeks were to help you have some ideas, some themes you could pursue, that you're not limited necessarily to these topics, but these are just to, kind of help you see some things that you could pursue. And right now it is okay if you're saying, I'm going to write about diversity, but I don't know exactly what I'm going to do yet, because you're just in the research phase. And so as you do some reading and watching and listening, you may find a direction that you want to take. So there's a whole long list there. And then these are only the pieces that correspond directly to the different modules. There are a couple of other things you'll be doing as we go through this project, but these correspond to the modules and show you that you are working with each one, even though you're not doing the worksheets that are on the module pages. Um, and this is how it's mapped out right now for timing. A couple other things you want to note is the workshops are going to be the 15th, 16th, and 17th of March. And then you'll have the 18th and 19th for your own revisions. And you'll submit the project by Friday the 19th by 11:59 p.m. You do need to complete the Language Arts Lab assignment for this project. I didn't have you do it for the last project because I'm going to have you do it for your portfolio. But the Language Arts Lab assignment is linked here. You need to meet virtually with a tutor from the Language Arts Lab to share your work in progress and learn how to improve it. When you visit, you're going to need to tell them that I need notification. That is part of the Language Arts Lab session notes form that you'll complete with the tutor. That is one of the questions on the form. So make sure that you say, yes, I need to be notified. The Language Arts Lab tutors are available from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Friday, and 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Sunday. So you want to make sure that you can work in a session somehow and that you don't wait until the last minute. They're first come, first serve. So you'll go in to Zoom and you'll enter the waiting room, and however they have that set up, you'll be put in line basically, and the first tutor available for you will take you and you'll work with that person, and they'll show you exactly how to do what they need you to do um, for that to work. So there shouldn't be any big issues with that. If you run into challenges with Zoom, you can use the Zoom technical support page, or if you really get stuck with accessing or have some questions about the tutoring itself, you'll want to contact the director of the tutorial, the Language Arts Lab, which is Maria McKee. And here's her email address and her phone number here, her campus phone number. So you can, and she's pretty responsive and really nice and really wants to help everyone. So as long as you reach out to her when there's an issue, um, just go ahead and do that, and you should get a response back from her. Um, yeah, so if you have other questions about the Language Arts Lab, you can ask me. If I don't know the answers, I will have you contact Maria McKee. All right, I think this is a long enough video for today. I would like to say that if you have any questions about anything, please let me know. I have two more things to say before I sign off of here. One is that no one sent me any times for a live meeting this week, so I am not scheduling one because I am not going to sit on Zoom waiting for people to show up when no one's going to show up. If you do want live sessions, you need to let me know days and times that work for you so that I can schedule them at days and times people will attend. I would like to have them. As this is an online class with no set class time, I am not allowed to require these sessions, and that's fine with me. But I do want to have them if people are going to attend them so that you can have your questions answered and things explained any more than you'd like, or just have a chance to chat with classmates. Um, but so if you do want a session, you've got to let me know days and times that work for you, especially with everyone having different class schedules and work schedules and sports schedules. It's really hard to work around that. Yeah. And then the other thing that I want to say is that I have been working on the portfolios. It does take me about an hour to go through each student's portfolio. So, and last night I missed out on, I had planned on working last night on them for a while. And so I missed out on that opportunity by not having any power. So I will be working on those and getting those done. It doesn't look like I will have them all done this week like I had hoped. But I will have them done as soon as possible. There is a form that you will fill out, and then once I review your responses on the form, I'll put your grades in Blackboard. The ones I've done already, I hope to have your grades in Blackboard today. If not today, they'll be up first thing in the morning, assuming we don't run into any more issues with power and internet. All right, so that's enough for today. Um, Again, contact me anytime you have questions or concerns so that I can help you out the best I can. Otherwise, have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing your progress on your research.